mic good?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Are you using a Bluetooth one?
Sort of, yeah, kind of. It's attached to the phone.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, sorry for being a little extra with the setup. This is my first time actually I have like
Oh,
my
no.
camera plugged in as the webcam, and then I'm just trying to just use as much content as I can from calls because it's just so easy when you're just having a conversation. If it's filming, I can go clip this up later. So I'm trying to get in the
Yeah,
habit of it because it's just like it's a lot.
100%.
I haven't done any podcasts in a while since I was like moving and stuff, but now I'm gonna be doing it a lot more consistently. So I'm sure I'll have you on like a few more times. So if
Yeah, I'm
today
down.
goes good and you like it, but basically with like I just kind of like to have a conversation. I don't like it to be super like professional, just obviously
Oh, okay.
more geared towards like I guess my niche people is like more entrepreneurs or high performers, and then in general I have a lot of coaches that probably listen to this kind of stuff. So really much more like trainer talk. We can kind of get deep into stuff and just kind of shoot the shit about everything. So yeah, and I honestly just kind of want to catch up because I feel like you've been doing a lot the past. I feel like it's been a minute. So
Right. Yeah, no, I'm down.
so yeah. Well, so like just give us a quick intro, just kind of like where you're at right now, how long you've been a trainer, just like the basics, and then we'll just kind of get into it after that.
Oh, cool. All right. So I'm Collin Shane. I'm in the Nashville area. Tanya and I used to work together loosely, like,
Like 2021. When did you start?
yeah, 2021. So like
Yeah.
I came in as she was leaving a gym in Nashville. Um, so like I think this summer will be like year 5 of training people. So like I originally like went to undergrad, like UT Chattanooga, then came out, didn't know what I was doing, and like was a PT tech and like worked on our physical therapist for like a year, and then was like, okay, you can only do so much as a tech. And like we got like a PT student that came in, and so I was basically just like stuck filing papers like this blows. So I
Yeah.
was like, I always kind of knew I was gonna go into personal training, but like there was like a lot of like self-doubt in the beginning with it, to be honest. And so like I kind of like ran from it, but like was close enough to where like it was always like one step away from doing. So like I worked at like a rehab place for like the first like 2 years, and then realized it was like I didn't really get along with the vibe that was like presented. Like I worked with some cool people, and like I have a lot of those clients still, but just like the overall message of that place was just kind of like restricting to people. And like they're like, yeah, you did surgery, so you're never going to be able to get back to like jumping or playing or doing whatever you want. And I
Yeah.
was just like, that just like doesn't add up to me. And like I'm literally seeing the opposite happen like with my clients. So like I thought that was odd. So I left there and then went to Quantum downtown in Nashville for the past like in 21, and that was great. Like got to expand to like a whole like more of like a more fit population. So like really got to see like, okay, like is what I'm actually doing working, or is it just because the people I was getting with were so undetrained that like
Yeah, it's
literally
like that's where you really see if you're
yeah,
meant for
people do
this.
it.
Yeah, when people don't intimidate you because they're actually really fit.
Yeah. So I was like, so that was cool. And then worked there for a bit. It was a good time. And then got connected with like Gunnar Peterson via like one of my clients who like owns like a meal prep service. Met him, and he's been like a super cool dude. Just kind of took me under his wing. He's like, hey, like if you want to train here, like there's gonna be the two of us, so like we'll get after it. So like that's like my person like in person side, and then like on the online sphere, like that's slowly like grown over the past like 3 years. Started with like one client just where I like faked it like I had done this for years
Yeah.
and had really good success with that. Um, and then just slowly just kind of trickles up into to where we are now, which has been like quite a journey. So it's
Yeah, I'm
been cool.
excited to talk about it because I feel like I've just been I mean, we both kind of just been seeing each other progress over the years, and just like it's been cool to have different opinions and then come to this like I feel like now they're starting to merge a lot, which I'm really excited to talk about.
Yeah, that's same.
I like before I got on the before I like got on the call, I was like, okay, I need to like introduce Colin. And I was like, how the fuck do you say his last name? And I am
Uh,
so glad that I didn't even try because that is not what I thought it was. So it's
oh yeah,
what is it? Say it again.
it's Shane.
Shane, just like
Yeah,
as if, okay, interesting.
I don't know how it was the worst growing up. Like I always dreaded like the first day of school because you had to. I'm like, oh, Colin Sean. It's like no, it's Shane or whatever, and I was
Yeah,
like, joke my parents or something. So
that is so funny. Yeah, I had no idea. I feel like that's just the case. Most people like don't know like how to say my name in general. Like my like just
I'm
Tanya.
pretty.
They'll say like Tania or Tanaya or And it's just funny. Before my Instagram name was Tanye's workout plan, so everybody used to like actually call me Tanye when they'd meet me in person. Like Kanye is, and I'd be like, that's not what it is. Um, yeah, so with Gunnar Peterson, so I actually kind of had a similar story with my mentor Stuart Breeding, and he knows Gunnar. Because where are you guys at in Nashville? Like it's like in Franklin?
Yeah, it's yeah, like do you know where the it's like a dead center of Cool Springs, like right
Okay,
next to
cool. Yeah, yeah. What's around there? Just like
the movie theater,
yeah,
Chick-fil-A.
yeah. I know where what shopping center is it in then? I don't think I've ever seen it.
No, so we're the old admission center. So like Gunnar came in, moved from California to Tennessee, was looking for like a spot of land, bought the old admission center, and like we've revamped it like into like
Oh,
a whole
sweet.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's like a good location right there. It's not too far deep into Franklin. Like it's not technically actually Franklin. It's just like, right kind of in between. It's
Yep.
like what? How long does it take you from like downtown? Like 20 minutes?
Not even probably like 15. Like
Yeah.
unless there's that Nashville traffic, so then that's
Yeah,
another.
seriously. Stuart, my mentor, he told me that Gunners, I think he said this in my podcast actually. He said that he's like the first like ACE certified personal trainer ever or something like that. Like, how old is he?
Oh yeah, it's something crazy. And then Ace did some weird stuff with him, so like
Yeah. Oh, really? That's funny.
yeah, his
So like,
stories.
yeah, let's not talk about that. So yeah, how's everything progressed with like online coaching since you started? You've been doing it for how long now? 2 years?
2.5 roughly.
Yeah.
So like that's picked up. Like at first it was just like I'd heard about like I've seen people do it and like I listened to like like the Revive Stronger podcast, like Steve Hall over in London.
The Revive
The
sounds really
bodybuilding.
familiar. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I'd heard how they've done it and then like Team 3DMJ and like on the way they do. They're very like hands-on like with their online model. And like that's how I try and do like cuz like I hear so many like horror stories like people like they get like an online coach and they just like here's the plan, good luck and it's like oh, it's just one of these teams and everybody gets the same program. And I'm like
Dude,
that's
I've
just
been getting really mind blown with stuff like that because people will show me their programs that they had before. Like now that when they hire me, and I'll be like, okay, what were you doing before? And they'll be like, okay, well, I'll send it to you. And it'll just be like an email, just was
yeah,
like the most
from a Word
basic
doc.
thing. And at this point now, like AI can write that in 2 seconds. So it makes me wonder. But let's kind of go back in time because I need to be a little bit more organized with how I do my podcast. So I'm learning and how to be a host and like ask the right questions at the right time. But let's kind of start off. I want to talk about your own fitness journey, how you got to become like wanting to be a trainer.
Oh,
And then from there, how it's progressed, just kind of if you had like a word to describe every year over the past 5 years, you said that you've been training like
yeah.
actual clients. Like what would you, I guess, like kind of a summary of each year of how it's progressed and how you've thought about training, just based off of what you've been learning, even before going into online coaching, and then we can kind of get into the online coaching stuff because I'm just really curious, honestly.
Like okay, so like my background like so I always played sports growing up and like was a nerdy kid for sure, still a nerd. Like that's like my roots. I
Yeah.
ran from it, came back to it. This is awesome. Um,
Yeah, same.
but I was just like, this is who I am. So like I had played like soccer growing up, and then like I'd always had like a good endurance background. Like just was always able to like outwork like who I was playing. Like, I always had a bigger engine. So then that naturally led me into like cross country and track,
What
and then like
position did you play in soccer?
midfield and defense typically because I had the worst footwork, but like
Yeah.
could make up with it by like being fast, but like
Yeah.
shitty footwork.
I played soccer my whole life. That's like my sport too.
So cool. I miss it, for sure. But let's see, yeah. So then it's like my senior year, like my two best friends at the time, like we're still buddies now. Like we kind of found like that Arnold magazine, and like, oh, like I don't want to be this skinny little nerd anymore. Like let's let's change this.
Yeah.
And then it was like got my first pump. Well, fast forward, actually. My first workout
My
was with
first
my
pump, that's
dad.
so funny.
Like when I first got introduced to it, I hated it. Like it was in the garage, and dad was like, "Hey, you're gonna lift weights," and I was like, "Okay, dad, whatever." And he was like, "We're gonna bench press," and I dropped 65 pounds on my chest, couldn't get it up,
Oof.
and my dad curled it off of me. It was like the most humiliating moment. I was like, "I'm never touching this. I'm going
Yeah.
back to the Xbox." Well, then like fast forward like a year, I was like, "Well, I don't want to be a punk if I'm gonna have a girlfriend." So I was like, "I guess we should start working out." Then
Yeah.
caught that first pump. I was like, "I'm hooked on this." So like loved it and was like, would love to make this my career. So like I tried. Like I was originally gonna go down like the PT like PT school route, and then I was just like, I hate school. Uh, Found that out in undergrad. I was just like, I don't like
Why
it.
did you want to do that? Was it just because like it's like a more traditional job? It's kind of more serious, makes more money, quote unquote, back then.
Yeah, like do you remember like in high school, like your teachers were just like, hey, like you need to go to undergrad, you need to get these jobs are gonna be
Yeah.
booming, and I like health and fitness. Like Scrubs, the TV show, like had way more of an influence on my life than it probably should have. I was like, I
Okay.
like the medical field
Yeah.
and thought I was gonna do that, and then I was like, eh. And then PT was kind of cool because like it is a touch of fitness. And then I got into like undergrad and was just like, I don't want to do 8 years of this.
Yeah.
And kind of bounced around at that time and then ended up like always knowing that like that's where I was gonna go, but it was just like, I don't know if you can make like a real living off that. Cause like as most people think, like just training is like a side gig, people kind of see it as. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how I like viewed it at the time. I was like, I don't know if that's really a career, like how that even works. And then there was like a lot of self-doubt initially. And then, like I said, or like first job out of school was like that PT tech stuff.
Yeah. And then you were at that, what's the place called in Nashville that you were at before? Is it the same PT place you're talking about that
Yeah, Empower.
okay. So like people so it's like a is it physical therapy? So people just got like kind of like go there after they like, are recovering an injury and then there is PT there, like personal training, right?
Yeah, so they have a great model. Like I will say they have like probably the like if you were to work somewhere, great model to get clients. Like so like they are an orthopedic center and I still send people like they're probably the best like
Okay.
surgeons in Middle Tennessee. So like they get people with post-op injuries, they would do physical therapy, and then the physical therapist be like, hey, you should probably continue on. Here's a personal trainer and get into that.
Gotcha.
So like
It's kind of clutch.
it was very nice because
Yeah.
like teching lets you see like people relearn how to move again. So
Yeah.
then you see the most wonky stuff. And then it's like, okay, you've got people with like high limitations that are losing it and then gaining normal like clearance for stuff. So like that was big because then it's like whenever you come across like I don't know how you got to be like, okay, like I know people are in pain. I got to fix pain more than I probably
Yeah.
should be fixing pain. Like it was cool to see that. But, like that's a whole nother world. It's like there's just PT world, and
Yeah.
there's a training world that like I'm individually invested in at the
Yeah.
moment. And it's like they should blend because we're trying to get the same place, but there's just for whatever
Yeah.
reason like disconnect.
Yeah. You're just like merging that gap. Yeah.
So like that led me into training the first like couple of years. Like the first year was just like realizing that I love training more than the average person loves training. I was like, okay, I'm definitely a weirdo here, and that
Yeah.
they're not the weirdo that they like, I don't really want to work out. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So like the first year was
So
just kind
in your own fitness journey, like through that time, were you like, I guess, would you consider yourself a bodybuilder or what was your like primary, like, what were you training like, I guess?
of the first like 2, 3 years I was training like a bro, like just
Yeah, it's
smash
like I don't even
like
know what to label, like how the average person
yeah, it
trains.
was
Yeah,
like
bro science.
the first like 3 years, like it was like go in there for 3.5 hours and murder myself, like 10 sets of
Yeah,
10 on everything, and like feel like death the rest of the week. Like that was that, and then it was like I
and
got
eat a lot of
injured.
food, just fucking
Yeah,
shovel
yeah,
food.
yeah.
Yeah.
I sent myself to the ER once because like I thought my appendix was bursting. It was because I was eating too much.
Isn't it
And
crazy how like we used to just do that and like not even question it? Like I would just work out for like 3 hours and just wreck
yeah,
myself and just do like ridiculous like don't get me wrong, like I still like to go in and like push myself, but just to think of that, like it's just unreal to think about, to be
I
honest.
was like I couldn't do that now. I would like that would
No,
take me out.
yeah, there's no way.
And yes, that was crazy. But what like really spurred it was I got injured like right before I got that teching job. Like I got injured in like a warehouse accident like my last year of college. And so like that took me out of lifting for a second. Like I like cut my tendon. It was a lame injury. Um,
Your
cut the
bicep tendon?
tendon. No, forearm tendon.
Oh, okay.
Box cutter. It was like I was saying, super
You
lame.
cut it. Oh, it was just like you actually like cut it?
It was, yeah, it was like a knife. So
Like
like I
you
had to
cut
pop
it with a knife. Damn.
like a pop and it like stabbed my arm and like came all the way out. It was
Fuck. Ugh, that's
yeah.
gross.
So yeah, it sucked. So I had to have surgery and like it was kind of taking out my life. I was like back in the gym training the next day, but like legs 500
Yeah.
times a week. But like I ended up meeting like a physical therapist, like who did my like physical therapy for that. Like this dude is just jacked. I've competed with this guy too, which is neat. But he
He
was
was
jacked. But he
classic.
like yeah, in classic.
Okay.
Um, And but he was so smart, and I was just like, wait a minute, like you can kind of blend the two. Like you can
Hmm.
blend the two for sure. And like so that led to my first study, and then I was just like, that's it. I was like, there's a whole science field to this. And I was like hooked from that point on. So then I went to do the PT Tech thing, was learning while I was working. My training started becoming like a lot more like precise. Like I started like listening like Israel, like the Eric Helms of the world at the time, like barbell medicine too,
Yeah.
like Austin Brock and all them. So I started listening to them, and I was like, oh, there's like a system to this. So like I started to form like my own little mini system of theirs. And like that was like the first year that like my training like really like took off too. It was like very predictable, and I was like wasn't in pain anymore. Like confidence in the gym was like I know I can get to here by this time period. So I started like mapping out.
Did you like, sorry to cut you off, but like during this
No,
process, did you like know that hey, in a few years like I'm starting to see these patterns of like other people are training the way that I was training, or just starting to see how people are training? Because I think you and I really like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we kind of train people who are already pretty fit, right? And so for the most part, I'm not training anybody at this point that's just starting to work out. Like they've been working out for a while, and so it's a lot of stuff that they've done to themselves training that has really fucked them up over time, that kind of starts to create a lot of the pain. So in reality, like I feel like bodybuilders in general, or I guess people who are training that way now with Instagram, anybody who's like watching somebody else and doing things and not even like questioning or understanding what optimal means for them or whatever, things like that. It's like those are the people that actually have it worse because they're learning how to do the wrong movement patterns, and it's like gonna fuck with them. And so I started to notice that kind of throughout, and I was like, okay, like in a few years, everyone's gonna need help with this kind of stuff. Did you kind of think about it that way, or were you just kind of like doing it for yourself?
no, I noticed that like people were just doing like at the time. I was like, this is dumb. Like I was just
Yeah.
like arrogantly speaking at the time. Now I'm like, oh, they could be right, but they probably weren't. Like I was just like, there's like I could just tell that randomness was happening, and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want that. I was like, that's the last thing
That's
I
like the
want.
yeah, that's like the biggest thing is people just doing shit for no reason. It's just very like
Exactly.
unconscious. Yeah.
And I had like a really like kind of neat like cohort really at the time because like the two buddies that I started working out with at the same time, like we were all still training, but like I was the one that kind of went down that avenue. It was like there's a way to do this, and like their training stalled, like stalled. They were always hurt, their progress was not happening. I was just like constantly
Yeah.
going up. And I
Yeah.
was like, ooh, there's something to that. So like that was the big like eye opener because I could literally see like finally these guys that were like once ahead of me, I'm now like catching and just like sprinting past them now.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy. Yeah, it's hard to deny. Once you start to see like the actual performance, it's pretty crazy. Like it's like you're like, damn, this is kind of like getting easier for me. And yeah, nobody else seems to be able to do this kind of stuff. That's a very eye-opening moment. Okay, so sorry, so keep going back to your, so you started to like notice all those things, and then from there, how has it progressed since then, I guess?
so like the first like do you want like my training or like just thoughts on
Yeah, so I
training?
guess so like whenever you got into, so like you got done at the PT place, right? And then you came to Quantum, and then you got into much more like you competed. When was the first time that you competed?
2021 or
So
20
you've
yeah
done two shows, right?
yeah I've done two. I
Two
did
classics.
one. Yeah, I did. I've done three. I did two this year and then one 2 years ago.
Okay, so like with so I guess in the more recent years, so since I've known you and just been kind of watching your stuff, how has your training progressed since then? Like bringing in the PT stuff, and then like now, I guess what would you say is like the biggest theme of the past couple of years when it comes to just like your knowledge and training, or how you think about it?
It would go like right before coming to Quantum. I did like a mentorship with. Do you know who Pat Davidson is?
I know that. Yeah, actually, yeah, I do know who Pat Davis is. Yeah,
Yeah, so I
yeah.
did. That was
He's like
prop.
he's like shorter, stockier guy.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
probably the thing that like catapulted everything after that. Like it was
Where
12
was that
weeks.
at?
It was during COVID, so it was all online, and I
Oh,
was just
okay.
like, it was like such a it was a really good time because like we went through not just like training stuff, but like personal and like goal setting and just like attacking like other people's thinking and attacking your own thinking in like a constructive manner. Like we would get on there and you would put your life goals on there, and then you'd have some dude you don't even know in New York City be like, dude, these goals are not good because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
And he's and you're like, wow. Like I ask clients to make goals all the time, and then I
yeah,
just came out here with like garbage. And so like you kind of got to adopt his model of training, which was like that was where I switched from like just like, oh, like bodybuilding was like the way to do it. It's like, oh, we should probably train. I'm gonna shout you like little more functional, whatever. Like
Yeah.
more athletic. Like what? Like I
Yeah.
hate that word. You know, I hate that
Yeah.
word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Why do you hate it? Let's like yeah, well, I
it's
guess what.
not that I hate that word. It's that it's the way it's used because it
Yeah.
can be anything. I think people think of it as one thing when functional, and we probably agree on this, means
Yeah.
whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah.
if
It's
you're
just like
trying
the
to
word
set,
optimal is like a huge word on TikTok and on
yeah,
Instagram right now. And it's like
okay,
everything is just relative to the person. Like if somebody sees me doing some shit and does it, it's not going to benefit them the same way because they have
right,
different lifestyle goals and
well,
everything. Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So I'm
I
just like,
completely agree. Yeah.
yeah, because I'm like that word can be whatever we need it to be.
Yeah.
So I just think that's funny. I don't actually hate the word. I just hate that it's like thrown around
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. No, I feel you.
right.
I mean, I hate that it's thrown around like that too. Like, and it's funny because the way that you think about just like merging the PT and the personal training things, that's kind of how I came up with like my Instagram name, the Functional Bodybuilder, because I was like, okay, well, I feel like my style of training is changing, and I want to essentially like describe what it is. Like, what do I bring to the table? What's different about me? Like a lot of those
Right.
questions just kind of were like in my head for a few weeks. I had done this like meditation with this mind guru at this coaching thing that I went to. And he was like trying to guide us to like our higher self, like name of like this kind of like not an alter ego, but like kind of an identity that you can adopt so that for business to kind of like, to just grow. And everybody like came up with one at the thing, and I was like, fuck, like I don't have any idea what mine is. And then like a couple weeks later in the shower, I was like, what am I good at? Like what makes me different? And then I was like, okay, well, I love functional training. And to me, like at the time, I was like doing a lot of functional training because I had to, because I'd never done anything like that. And so I was really fucked up. And so it was like, okay, I like functional training, but I still love bodybuilding. Like it's like how I started to get into fitness. I'm like really, plugged into that community in general. Like what? And I was like, oh shit, the functional bodybuilder. Like, how could I merge those two? Like they can both exist. And then the biggest thing was like it wasn't taken on Instagram. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right,
A
which
good
is
name.
crazy. Yeah. It's like so catchy, right? And like now it's like it's not, a lot of people don't know this, but it's not what I want. Like I don't want it to describe me. Like it's not like that I am a functional bodybuilder. It's like I build functional bodies, or like
Right.
I
Yeah.
and it can also be, I want it to be much more of a brand of like just an overall outlook on everything versus just me as a person. So I kind of need to like make it its own thing here pretty soon, but that's my little spiel on that. But it's not a horrible word. It's just like used wrong. Same thing
Yeah.
with like optimal or whatever. Like there's just so many people nowadays making content that it's just like anything that's like this is the only way, that's like, not accurate. Like cuz who knows?
Yeah. It's like that person never worked with people because it's
Yeah.
like right like I took Prescript's course last year, which was fantastic. If you haven't taken that cert, it is actually useful. It's one of the few certs I
What's
would
that?
recommend. Like Prescript, like Jordan Shallow, like the muscle doc.
No, I don't.
Uh anyway, they're like a
Send me their
biomechanic.
page. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. You'll probably like, oh, I've seen this dude.
Yeah.
But anyways, so they have a whole thing that's like was a great like they have a great assessment process, like a great like direction, but it's like it'll hit 2 out of 3 people, and then you'll get this third person, you're like, doesn't like their system
Yeah.
doesn't fit. And it's like I'm working with this dude downtown, Jason Colley, right now, and it's like his stuff catches the stuff other systems don't. So it's like, oh, what works with one person may
Yeah.
work half the time, but then when you don't use it, then you're like, okay, you know that there's no one way to do it. So it's just like always being open to
Yeah.
like different models and systems because they all potentially could be what the person in front of you needs, which if we're getting back to training, like that's what we're doing is who's in front of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said something about it being like a arrogant kind of, you said arrogance or something like that.
Oh,
At
when
the
my in the
begin
beginning?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I mean, like I can resonate with that a lot. Like over the years, it's just a lot of being humbled. And a lot of the times it's like the stuff that I've been like, there's no fucking way, is typically something that ends up happening to me, or there's an exercise I think is stupid and I just haven't tried it and I do it and I'm like, oh shit, like it's
Yeah,
actually pretty
100%.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
like, well, all right, I was wrong.
yeah,
Throw
and
that out.
so a lot of that just comes from I think the years of experience and then working with different clientele. That's why with like I'm really grateful for my timeline when it comes to coaching, because I'm full-time in online coaching now, but I spent so much time one-on-one for, like with a lot of different types of clients, and then in group fitness you're getting such a variety where you kind of have to recognize like what those patterns are of like this general group of people can do this, and I need to be able to modify what's like the next option that's going to challenge them, but it's still going to be, like kind of that in between. So it's a lot
Yeah.
of like being able to just analyze, okay, who am I talking to? How are they going to receive it? And I feel like that's really helped me when it comes to online coaching because I know those patterns now, and I'm sure, like I've seen all your stuff and like especially whenever you're giving form corrections like to your clients, like whenever you do those little videos, I can tell that you're like just it's just natural, right? Like you're like, oh yeah, like just everything just clicks. If you see a movement pattern, it's easy to identify like, okay, this is in general what's going to be going on here, right? I want to get into because this is like a huge thing that I've been seeing on your page that's really pulled me in is how you've been taking people from this like so whenever I started coaching, I worked with a lot of like weight loss clients, and the gym that I was at was running like 6 week challenges where we were like basically bringing people in to lose more than 20 pounds, but a lot of people had 100 plus pounds to lose. So that was like my first experience in the fitness industry as a trainer, and it really pulled me in because it was just like fascinating, right? Like how some people like their mindset behind it and how they were changing and everything. But what's really like been a heartbreaking thing to watch over the years is the people that like would lose 100 pounds plus would literally either gain it all back or they get stuck where they're at and then they just kind of like, all right, well, fuck this, and then they don't really progress after that, right? I have a client right now that works with a personal trainer in Austin, and then she just does online coaching with me when it comes to like mobility stuff and like mindset stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff.
Yeah.
But she just lost 100 pounds, and we were just having this conversation on our call last week of just being discouraged at this point, right? Like she's at this point now where she's like, I just like want to like lose this next 50 like now, like and now there's like all these different things out there that you can do, whether it's like the what's that thing? Have you seen that thing that's like people are like injecting themselves to lose weight? It's like
Uh,
what is it fucking called? I forget what it's called. It's like semi-glutide something.
oh, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there's like options like that, right, for certain people. And I think with extreme weight loss, which I would consider like over 90, 100 pounds, that's something that I always like allow people to just have a freedom with doing, right? So I want to just talk about that because I've seen RC like make a huge transformation and then Will make an awesome transformation. I've been around them for a long time. I've also trained both of them and seen them work with a lot of other trainers. So it's been really cool to see you really like get them out of that space. And obviously they've done a lot of their own work in the past, but what do you think has been, I guess, the pattern there? Because like, I think you have another client. I don't know his name, but I think he's like,
Andre.
yeah, yeah, because he was kind of in that stage too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I'm excited to hear about this part specifically.
Yeah. Okay, so the biggest thing I would say that I do with every client is like them in particular, because they have that experience with doing stuff and like they've had some success and it gets harder, is like I really try to like educate. I tell them initially on the board, I'm like, hey, my plan is not to be with you forever. Like that does no good to you because when I'm gone, or if I decide randomly to quit coaching or you move and or life happens, like you need to be able to know how to do these things on your own. Like I'll
Yeah.
help get you there, but like if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, the likelihood that you stick to it will fly out the window, and then it like you will be too emotional with like your fat loss, your training. Like if you can make the switch, because I think that's the thing that like all people that are like high level, like they can turn the emotion off and know they need to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
So like that usually happens through like understanding why you're doing what you're doing. So there's like a lot of teaching that I do like in it. I'm like, hey, we're doing like, and I tell them like, hey, like if you don't hear it, like stop me, but like you're gonna learn this because like if not, we're not gonna work together.
Do you feel like it
Um,
just takes the like life out of training for you if you don't explain it? Because I feel like it does. I'm like, it's literally like I would not be. I know that I'm not fully helping you at my full potential if I don't explain it to you, or at least like find. It doesn't have to be like explaining it to you in nerdy talk, right? But like
right.
at least getting it to click for you. Like for me, I don't feel like I'm doing my job if I don't do that. Like it's weird.
I if I can tell the person in front of me, like at this current moment, like doesn't give a shit about it, but like they want to get there, like they still want to get there. So like they care a little bit. So I'll wait. I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna let them have this moment that clicks, and I let people like fuck up on purpose because
Yeah.
then they learn. Because like
Yeah.
oh shit, like I'm not gonna like track my chicken cooked when I'm logging raw information, be like, why am I not losing weight? Like, oh, because you were
Yeah.
doing it wrong. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And then that leads to the like, well, what else? And I'm like, okay, now I got you.
Yeah.
So like I'll like a bait and switch on them when I see that happening because I know they'll more than likely need it
Yeah.
uh, with that. But with RC and Will and like Andreas, it's just like it was a lot of like it was a lot of the education point, but it's also making them like get out of the like I have to get there right now. Like
Yeah.
fall in love with the process. Like obviously that's not like groundbreaking, but it was just like it was really taking their emotion out of it to where they can go to work. Like Will or RC, like they would free or I've had like other women that like the scale fluctuation. Do you remember Vita?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So Vita used to be bad about this. Like literally when Carolyn
Shout out
too, like
Vita.
yeah,
All y'all.
the homie. Uh like they would have this really bad relationship with the scale. And like
Yeah.
as you know, like it jumps like Monday, it's like one if you're trying to cut like it's 170, the next day it's 168, the next is 171. Like there's this whole fluctuation standpoint. I'm like, hey, we're gonna weigh every day, but we're gonna pay attention to this average because that tells the story. Like I'm telling you right now that it will jump up and down and be prepared for that. And they're like, they don't believe you at first. They're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
get out here. Like I'm in a deficit, it should drop. And then once they kind of see it and they get like desensitized to that, then they're
Hmm.
like, oh, got it.
Yeah.
And they just like pick off with it. And then they're not like freaked out with the scale. Like their whole relationship with food gets better. Now, like I've had one person where they like that was not the case. Like they're like, I just really don't like the scale. And I was like, okay, we need to just shift mindset, something else. But that's like a one-off. But she
Yeah.
like acknowledged it and was like, I think I can focus more now. We're getting that direction. But like with those in particular, it was just like an education thing. They now understand like they'll start to tell you like, hey, weight went up, but it's because I had 3 juices of Gatorade Zero before bed because the
Yeah.
dogs need that. And you're like, okay, cool. We know that's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because what it really comes down to, and this is for like trainers, so I really hope some trainers are listening. A lot of my clients are like younger trainers, so I really enjoy this part now because I'm starting to just mentor people that are just skipping a lot of the trial and error that I had to go through. But it really comes down to being confident in what you're talking about because everything that you just said, like you're saying, educating them, right? If you're not confident enough about your education, you're not going to feel confident educating someone else because you don't know what you're talking about. Like, deep down, you don't know what you're talking about. And then it comes down to being present, right? Like a lot of what you just said is just simply like, oh, I paid attention to what was actually the problem. Their emotions were getting in the way. So we started to talk about that, right? I know that every single one of those people have trained one-on-one with somebody else in the past, right? And it doesn't matter who that trainer was, but what it comes down to is just like looking at what's right in front of you. And I think a lot of the times trainers have imposter syndrome early on, or whenever the questions start to get hard, there's a little bit of like, well, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, right? And it really like for me, it was like I wanted to be right so bad for so long that like I avoided just simply like if something came up during a session, like during the day, I like wouldn't go like read about it later until I like
Right.
finally was like, all right, like how many times do I have to run into the same issue with someone? Until I like go pick up a book or fucking Google search or go read something or like go look it up on Instagram, YouTube. There's a lot of resources out there, but I think a lot of people just kind of get stuck in how everybody else does it, which is typically what, creates again that imposter syndrome because they're not actually going and getting the resources themselves. Have you like been super nerdy about like I guess going towards more certs and stuff like that since the start?
Oh, 100%. Like like I wake up and the first thing I think about is training and it all comes
Yeah,
back to
dude,
but
me too.
it's all because at the end of the day, this is all cool to help people, but selfishly, like I want to improve my own. So like
Yeah,
that just like that I'm like, okay, that's very internally driven on how that happens. And then as I stumble across this information, that'll be for someone that I need. But I think like what helps the most, like with clients, like you said, all these people had trainers before, and not to knock any of these trainers,
yeah,
but like I would put money down on the table that I probably do more outside of if it's an in-person session or even if they are online and they're an early client with like a low rate that's been grandfathered in, like I go way above like what you'd expect. Like if it's someone you see in person and you want them to get their goals, guess what? You should probably write stuff for them to do outside of when you see them. And if they have
mhm,
a question, don't wait till they see you. Be like, hey, door's always open. Like, hit me with whenever. And like
Yeah.
always like being like I've taken calls with people that are having like a mental freak out. And it's like I got 15 minutes before my next client. Like I would love to just sit there and like chill out for a second. I'm like, hey, hop on the call, let's get off this ledge. Like that's what at the end of the day, they kind of hired you for anyways. And if you
Yeah.
really care about I'm very like I care deeply for each client that like comes to my door. Like you're looking for help, that's a big step. Like I'm acknowledging the fact that like, hey, like you tried or realized, hey, I don't have the skills to like get where I want to go. Like help me. Like that's your job. Even if they are the most annoying person on the planet and you like have to pester them, be like,
It's
hey, like
gonna
are you
be annoying sometimes. That's for
yeah.
sure.
But like if you
Yeah.
really care, like that's what you have to do. So like that was the
Yeah.
thing. Like in people, I was like, also, again, it comes back to a selfish thing. The in-person client's like, oh, I'm going to work out on my own. I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Not on some random bullshit. Then you're going to come in here on Tuesday, like, my knee hurts. I'm like, yeah, because you did 10
Yeah.
sets of mid-range quads in a row, followed by
Mhm.
another. No, like,
Yeah.
here you go. Because your
Yeah.
results can bring me clients later because you crushed it.
Yeah. And selfishly, you're also like learning in that process, right? Like while you're training, like I'm like dialed in when I'm training, like just so focused, just trying to notice every little pattern because it's like getting that outside view of yourself of like I notice so many things in my own training because I'm just constantly watching other people, right? Like I'm just like able to see little things that you wouldn't notice at obviously in your own body or in the mirror or whatever it is. What was I gonna say? Okay, so with coaching, or I guess with business and online coaching, how has that kind of progressed over the past few years? So with online coaching, how did you transition or what are you doing right now? Are you doing like 50-50 when it comes to training? What do you like
Uh,
about it? What do you dislike about it? Do you think that everyone should do it? Like if they want to take this to a career, I guess, level, if you want to say that. Um, yeah, or what are the things that maybe in the past you had some perspective of like online coaching is like, I'm sure at some point I kind of felt like this is like I don't want to be like everybody else online selling online coaching and bullshitting, but it's like, okay, well, it doesn't have to be like that for me, right? So what are like the biggest, I guess, wake up moments that you've had of whether it's like how much money you can make or whatever, just kind of everything about it.
can I say one thing back to the fat loss plateau?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
know
yeah,
you also recognizing where like how long this person's been dieting is so
yeah,
big because there comes to be a point just where like their negative adaptation could be what's preventing them like or like so like if you catch someone and they've been in like in a diet it's that you have to take them out for a little bit like you just have to because you're not going to one get that person where they need to go you're just going to exacerbate the problem and that is an uncomfortable conversation to have because it's just like hey, we're gonna have to pull back and I have to get you ready to then dive back in. So like if that's where like your client history is so big. I just wanted to say that because it just sounds like I just like caught him and we just went anyways. Um, always ensuring that.
yeah. So how do you do that? Do you just say, "Hey, eat whatever you want. Let's intentionally eat. Let's shoot
No.
for 3 meals a day." Like, how do you get them out of a crazy diet phase? Because that is for sure a thing. Like, even like that's honestly like a huge thing because they just been eating a certain way and they have lost a lot of weight eating that way, and so they
Right.
are also not wanting to let go of that simply because they're
Yeah.
like, "Yo, well, this is what worked. How do I know that you're not bullshitting me?" Especially if you're gonna ask someone to eat more food, right? That's like fucking scary, right? There's that fear of going back. So, yeah, how do you get through that?
So like I look at like nutrition on the same way I look at training, and I'm pretty sure you do this. So like I have like a whole model from like a training perspective, like where someone falls, like on like a constraint to like stability demand thing, and then that helps me pick moves. But also like on nutrition, it's like I put people on like a 5 scale rating system. So it's like level 0. Like once we do, like I'll have people just do like a food log the first week, like 4 days, like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That way, one, I can see like, are they even good at logging? Because they could be really bad at it. So then that helps figure it out. Two, like what foods are they having? Where do they gravitate towards? Are they weird about things? So then you get a baseline. So like level 0 would be like
Are they weird
grandma.
about things? What do you mean?
Uh oh, I had a fried chicken tender. Don't judge me for it. Or they're just like,
Are
I
they weird
really
about things? That's so funny.
yeah, people are weird with the food. They're
No,
so weird
yeah,
about
they're so weird with the food for sure. I hear you.
Or just like, or you just catch up like you're having 0 calorie items at every meal. Like that's a problem. Um,
Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about that
Potentially.
for a second before we move on too far. With logging, like what are like the like three things that people are logging incorrectly? That way we just keep it short. We can move on to the next one. But then what did you just say right now? Just lost my train of thought. You said
Or like weird things to do or whatever.
yeah, what weird things do they do? Sure.
Um, yeah, so like when it comes to logging, one like portion like people not understanding like how to take the information on labels and match it to cooking, like weighing stuff cooked when the information is
Yeah.
raw. Like that's big answer number one, like every time because you're underreporting when you do that. Uh, two is using like cups and stuff or like a
Oh, and they like
spoonful.
fill it over the actual measuring.
Let's just like even if it was like going up to like the top of the cup, like there's a difference of like maybe like 50 grams on there, but that could be anywhere from like 100 to 150 different calories to where you're over some days or under and whatnot. Like it's just inaccurate. So like peanut butter is a good one. 30, like a tablespoon from one day to the next looks different, but could be literally 500 or 120 calories.
Yeah.
Um, that one, or just like going back after the days happened and trying to relog, like as opposed to either pre-planning it or doing it like in the moment. Because there's just a
Yeah.
lot, you'll forget stuff. Like we're all busy people. Like I forget stuff. And it's like, was that 16 Rice Krispie trees or was it 12? I don't know. Um,
Yeah,
I
that's an easy one to forget. Have you
yeah.
ever had somebody, I'm sure you have, but this one always blows my mind. Have you ever had somebody like weigh their, so like let's say you're like, hey, you have 150 grams of protein for your macros, right? And they weigh like 150 grams of chicken and like they think that's what it is. Have you ever had somebody do that? Like on the scale it says that versus like the protein quantity?
Oh, they took it like so little. No, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't
That is
happen to me now
hilarious.
because I'm like very specific about it. But I remember when we would do like those challenges, it was like kind of broad how we were like, we were just kind of like talk, like they're getting a lot of information that, and a lot of people would be like, yeah, like I'm not eating enough food. And I'm like, yeah, let me see what you're eating. And it's like, yo, no, that's not what it is.
That is hilarious. That's
Yeah,
fun.
it's a kind of like you'd think it's common sense, but you know, people just don't really know. So yeah, no, that definitely is a huge thing, people logging incorrectly and just kind of like guesstimating for the most part. Or like a huge thing that I hear on every consultation call or when I talk to someone new, they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing wrong. I've tried everything, right? And I'm like, nah, no, you're not doing everything. You haven't tried everything. Let's actually look a little closer. And they just like have this idea of like, oh, well, I tried it one time and it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
But they're not actually being strict about it. That's kind of what I do too. I just I it depends on the client.
Yeah.
Um, you know, a lot of my clients are like my niche that I kind of work with online is like kind of high performers. Like I said, a lot of people that I work with are either already trainers or they have a pass in the fitness industry in some way, shape, or form. So they don't necessarily need as much guidance with nutrition unless we're like trying to hit some crazy goals. In general, like we do talk about it, but it just kind of depends. If they want it more than anything. Like I definitely hold them accountable to just in general, like eating clean, but it just really depends on their goals. So since I'm not taking on a lot of people that are like Gen Pop, I guess it's not as big of a conversation with coaching. Unless again it applies to their goal in the moment, but I'll have them just kind of like log and show me what they're already eating. And then for the most part, just I give them suggestions on like, hey, let's kind of move these things around or bring in more protein here or whatever. Right now, so whenever you got into online coaching, did you have a niche then? Have you done any business coaching stuff? Like, do you have a niche now, I guess, that you work with? And then I think I asked you before that, like, are you doing 50-50? You know?
Uh, I mean, I would love to have a niche, but it's literally so random. Like it's all like it's probably evenly distributed on like what people are doing. Like I've had
Yeah,
like bodybuilding, I've had powerlifting, I've like Gen Pop. I have people that are doing like sport. Like it's so balanced. Like it's fun because it's just all ranges, which is like
yeah,
probably like which makes it really hard to target marketing wise. I'm just
yeah.
like, well,
Well, that's
keep
why I
grabbing.
started to actually do it. Like one of my friends is a marketer and he was like always on my ass about it. And it really everybody that I would talk to, like every business coach would be like, you have to niche down. And I'd be like, no, but I want to help everybody. And it's been so helpful for my own personal health and time management because it's not that I'm not able to help everyone because someone's going to get something out of it. But as far as who I'm attracting as a client and I guess how I'm like so for the most part I'm like talking to a imaginary client like on my in my content pretty much that kind of fits a lot of these characteristics and really it's just a past version of me. Like it's like I'm talking to someone who like wants to know the stuff that I would want to know a couple years ago pretty much and what like or is dealing with some sort of pain or injury. And when they come in from content, they're already, like in general that type of person, and then they fill out an application process, and then right there is where we really figure out like, okay, is this person actually someone that I want to work with, can work with? Is it something that they would take serious? And it's funny because I can see like how many applications, like how many people start an application and they didn't finish it, and it's like literally over 80% of people start it and then they don't finish it just based off the questions that I ask. So once I have somebody come in like as an app, literally like when I get on a call, it's like the perfect client for me. So I'm closing like almost 100% of my calls. So I'm not on the phone with a bunch of random people who like think they might kind of want to get into training. It's just this one specific person. So I was very against it at first because I'm like, hey, all the stuff I talk about can help anyone, and it can. I think my content, like anybody can hop on, listen to this podcast, get something out of it. But who is getting pulled in for my actual like lead, I guess, as a lead for coaching, it really it's the word I'm looking for. It really filters out those people who aren't a right fit for
Yeah.
me, and it makes my life easier.
I think that actually now you say it, like if I had to pick, not pick, if I had to like really narrow it down on who I have, it's more so people that have worked. Man, this is a mind clicking moment. That have worked with others and are already serious and just need
Yeah.
that one. Like I think that would be it. Like people that are like really locked in, because like I don't get the people that goof around or like are half in the door anymore.
Well,
Like they
yeah,
don't.
and that can be your niche, like, right? That is
Yeah,
still a niche. So I would agree, like that's definitely like who I'm like, I guess same
that
thing,
makes sense.
like someone who has worked with somebody else. Like they've done something. It's not like
Yeah,
the first time they ever considered training. Yeah. It really does help, like I said, because then whenever you're talking to that person through a camera, like you're able to again, just the person who like is scrolling and that applies to is gonna be like, oh shit, he's talking to me. And it really starts to like condense who is looking at your content and really helps also with like the algorithm specifically because it's like one type of person. So the AI, whatever the hell's running it, is like knows who you're talking to,
that's smart. Yeah, I'm
really
taking
weird. But
away with that.
yeah, wait, what'd you say?
I'm taking that away. Like that's a
Yeah.
good thing. That just as
Yeah.
a light on it.
And you could say that. You could like be like, I help people who have worked with other trainers before and haven't gotten the results that they want. Right? And it's like now there's like this group of people. And the like from a business perspective, right? If there's trainers listening, you also know that they've paid for training before whenever you're going getting on a call with them. So you know that money's not necessarily going to be as much of an objection, if any. And it really takes it's not necessarily that it like just changes everything, but it changes your confidence going into it because you know that like money's not going to be like they know they're paying money, right? And so if you're like kind of especially with online coaching, whenever I transitioned, it was like, okay, even though people in a gym that are coming in as a lead are like still strangers, it just kind of like felt normal. I had been doing it forever. So when I started to get on calls with people that like, I'm like, we have no one in common in our life. Like there's no friends in common. There's no referral. Like you don't know anything. It start like that was like a that's where you really know where your confidence is at when it comes to selling coaching, right? And it's like when you're asking for money to someone you've never met before through a freaking computer screen, it's like really helpful to know if they've worked with a trainer before. Beforehand, just so that your confidence can be a little different going into a call. So, what's your sales process like right now? So, like, right now, how are you? What are your systems looking like as far as coaching goes? Because you said you had done something. I don't know if Gunnar does online coaching or who you had worked with as far as business coaching or what podcast or whatever you listen to. Like how's what way do you structure it right now, I guess, and structure the business side of
Like
it?
generate lead. So to be quite honest, like most lead stuff has been pretty much referral. And then like I have like the website set up if they want to like go through that. Like it's like that's the one thing that my business for one like I say this whole time is lacking is like a more consistent funnel of clients in. Because like I've pretty much grown my business off of just referrals with like a handful of just like people that have like found my stuff and like, oh, okay, cool. Like I like this guy and let's
Yeah.
talk. And
I mean, do you
that's
want it to be something that's more that's I guess like a bringing in more leads, I guess, or how do you structure it right now? When it does come to coaching, do you want to do something that's more of like a subscription based thing, or where are you at right now, like with your business in general, like this year?
So for this year, the goal is to increase online clientele by a little bit, in-person clientele by a little bit, probably like 8 sessions if we're gonna put a hard number to it per week in person, and then add like 5 to 6 more online clients for myself, and then 8 for Jess because my
Okay.
wife is like in the
Yeah.
business too. And then we're working on right now like on like getting just programs out to where it's like a click buy, like that work's already done.
Yeah.
But that's being worked on now.
You just like learn that by looking at other people's pages on Instagram, or is there like a
Learn.
resource as far as how to structure it, right? Like online coaching. It's like, oh, well, other people do
Oh, like how
programs.
I
I
do
should
my stuff.
Yeah, like how do
Oh,
you do it? Like for example, so like I use Trainerize. I FaceTime my clients once a week. They can talk to me in
oh God.
between.
Oh, that whole thing.
That
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so like they reply or someone sends them over. I always schedule a Zoom call with them, 15, 30 minutes. Like get to know the person, see if we're even a good fit. Go through like medical history, like training history, what their goal is, like all that like standard stuff right there. Also try and build rapport in that first that call because if it's not there, like it's not gonna be there on an
Yeah.
online thing. So then off that, if they're like, hey, we're gonna like I'd love to start this, I'm like, okay, cool. I need you to send me 3, like I do like a quick like movement screen with them. Like I have them send it to me because like I use a lot of like on like a lot of camera stuff from them to me, like a lot of form videos. Like I'm
Mhm.
trying to be as hands-on with that as I can. So like I'll hit people back like in the moment when they're training, as
Yeah.
long as I'm not like training someone in person or like on a call with another client. That way they're having somebody with them at the
Hmm.
same time, as opposed to just here's my program. I'll talk to my coach at the end of the week. So
Yeah.
like we have that dialogue back and forth. My line's always open. So like they'll send me the movement screen. I'll check like okay, this cool stuff is good. So then it just gives me a better like baseline where to like start their program design. Because at the end of the day, it's still guess. Um, but we can just get closer to where we need to be as opposed to being like way up here. So if all that's good, then like program design is write the program out for that person. We hop on another call before they start training because this whole spiel that I just tell them, I'm like, they'll probably need to hear it again. I'm like, hey, this is this. I use Google Sheets because I'm old school and I
Yeah.
love Google Sheets.
Yeah.
And like just for me to for me to see the matrix that is training and people's progression, like I see it very clearly on that. I do not see it clearly on Trainerize or like True Code. I don't like it. This is a personal thing. They're great
Hmm.
platforms. I just don't like them.
Yeah.
Um, but I link everything to them for them. Like there's notes, like they don't have to do anything except for like the first week of a block, or if it's a movement we've never done before because it's a guess on their weight. But like all that's there for them. So we're constantly communicating during the week, like via the form video. So like there's accountability on their end to me because like I know if you didn't go to the gym because I didn't get a form video for me to say,
Yeah.
even if it's a move we've done a billion times, like oh like let's still send me that. That way I know you went.
Yeah.
And I'm checking like speed and blah 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 and like compounds. So like there's that, and then every week we hop on a call, go over the week, discuss like if we're handling nutrition, we go over that stuff. If we're handling like strength, like whatever we're focused on, we're talking about that call. So then we already have the plan for the next week set, and then that way like there's the texting communication, but there's also the verbal communication with them
Hmm.
throughout. That way they're never just like on an island. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. That's good. And so, whenever you're checking in with them, so you're doing communication only through text during the week, and then whenever you do a check-in call, or do you do check-in calls, or
Every
is it
week.
just okay every week? And how long are those?
It depends on the person. Some
Okay.
people love talking 5 minutes. Some people will talk 30. I block out 30, 15 to
Okay.
30. And I
Yeah.
kind of figure out like if it's new, I'll always block out 30. If I kind of
Yeah.
figure it's working out, like we only need to
You
talk
do
15 minutes.
Zoom every time.
No, we'll just do like phone call because like I try to
Okay.
like because I'll catch people in between.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, we have so much dialogue during the week.
Hmm.
Like I probably talk to clients 20, like 10 to 20 times throughout the week, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And so are you liking it, I guess, as far as just online coaching goes in general? Are you able to see, or not able to, have you been seeing the same results that you would see in clients in person? And then are you like, since you said everyone's a referral, have you gotten a few clients that are, out of state that aren't referrals
Oh,
that maybe just found you through some content?
yeah. So I mean, like I have clients in like different states over the US. via referral and like through the like online submissions and stuff. It's funny enough, your online clients 9 out of 10 times will get better results than your in-person clients. They're more
I
dedicated.
completely agree. I completely agree. It's
But
insane.
it's a different person though, because the person that's
Yeah.
coming to you is more than likely really needs that accountability, and like that, the online model is not for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that a lot more people get like it's like everybody gets more results in general, but a lot more people get results in like period, right? Like everybody gets results.
Yeah.
There's obviously some people that are seeing a little bit more, but if they're sending me form videos, if I'm able to actually break it down with them and they're showing up for calls and they're getting some really good results. And for
Yeah.
the most part, so I kind of do it the same way. Like I know a lot of coaches that do email check-ins once a week, or they just do email check-ins in general. And for me, it just like takes the fun out of it. I want to connect with somebody, I want to talk to them. And at the end of the day, like sometimes, well, not sometimes, a lot of people can just hide behind a little questionnaire and be like, yeah, I did everything I was supposed to do, whatever. But they're just bullshitting, right? They're bullshitting themselves, they're bullshitting you. And it's like, if you get on a call and you're like looking at them face to face, you're like, I know you didn't fucking do it because of the way you're answering me, right? Or even on the phone, you can kind of, hear someone's tone. And then you're able to also hear, hey, are they frustrated? Are they not speaking up about a concern that they're having or whatever it is? So I just personally feel like calling them and talking to them is where a lot of that work happens. But before, when I was doing in-person training, as I've gone through different phases of being a trainer, and now I consider myself a coach where we're working on a lot of other stuff. But um what was I gonna say? I As I've gone through it, I've just like learned that I fucking forgot my train of thought like completely. Hold on.
The talking. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like if you don't have that like interpersonal connection with that, like it's not coaching.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
it's program writing with little bits of data feedback, which in 5 years probably AI can do.
Yeah, well, AI can do a lot of stuff right now, right? Like it could literally like you could write a program, whatever. But yeah, so like with a lot of people like the email check-ins, and then I know a lot of people who do like Loom, so they'll have people send them their exercises, and then they record a Loom giving them corrections. And for me, again, I like to just like get on the phone with them and just be like, hey, this is where, or screen share, like I'll do FaceTime and I'll
Oh,
screen share with them and I'll be like, this is exactly where you need to, change this movement or whatever. And just them recording it, and typically before a call they'll like watch the video back, and before they send it to me they're going to be like, okay, where what is she going to say, or what can they notice, and they start to get a little bit more nerdy about it as well. And I feel like a lot of work happens there where they're
yeah.
like actually analyzing their own movements and stuff like that, which is why I like online coaching, because that person is going and having their own time at the gym, which is really where I'm sure you agree. Like that's where I've learned everything, is just by simply going to the gym and disconnecting from everything else going on, and like connecting to my body and not being in a group fitness class or working out with a buddy or whatever, just like putting my headphones on and just connecting. And for, like I said, I train a lot of people who I've worked with trainers before. So with online coaching, it's like perfect because it fits their schedule. They can go in there and they can see, exactly what to do. They have notes in there for them. So you said a couple weeks ago, or I don't know, whenever I was messaging you on Instagram about you said you were filming videos for the demos and stuff and updating everything for your online coaching. So right now, whenever that you link them an exercise, do you just link like a YouTube video, or do you record it yourself, or um
It yeah, man, that happened. Our gym got shut down in that time period where that was we were like plowing through, so like lost our filming space.
oh shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're back on that finally. Sweet Jesus, that sucked.
Yeah. Because
Um,
I feel like that takes a lot. And again, for trainers listening, that
it's a
takes a
long time.
lot of that in between talk. So for me, like, I'm all about my clients reaching out to me and, asking me questions. But for the most part, if I'm giving them 30 minutes of my time on FaceTime once a week, like we're handling a lot of stuff during those 30 minutes, right? Like we're going to be able to really check all the boxes in every area of their life. So then during the week, if they're at the gym, I've taken the time to make a lot of videos where I'm like really detailed, and then I'll kind of give like, here's a couple of things I want you to notice while you're doing this, or some ways that you might fuck this up, kind of thing. So they're getting so much detail in the video that they don't, unless it's an emergency, which I can't really help with during the week. Like there's really no reason to really hit me up, right? Like they might hit me up and be like, dude, I hitting you PR or something, and we're communicating that way. but it takes a lot of that like what I noticed if is since I do that, less people text me about bullshit, right? And because less people text me about bullshit, they have a moment to like since they like kind of know that they are going to get a call and that I'm, not going to respond to bullshit, they'll question themselves before they send the bullshit. So it kind of gives them this moment to really think out, is this something that I even want to send, right? Because I'll be like, "Hey, we'll talk about it on our call." So I try to set a boundary there because I got really stuck with online coaching, and I think also because I'm full-time online to where I was just giving away so much of my time and having the same conversations over and over again. And now I'm all about like, okay, how can I make this a system so that I have more time, more energy to make content or just work on my education? Because a lot of people like would text me about like they're having a mental breakdown, and sometimes it's valid. So I completely understand. Like I will get on the phone if I can, and it's like a valid thing. But if they're just using it as an excuse to like not follow their meal plan or not follow their workout or whatever, or oh, like this machine is taken at the gym, and it's like I already gave you an alternative on how to do it. I feel like it's like an easy like, oh well, I'm just gonna wait for her to text me back. So I try to cut any of that out. And it works so far, but there's obviously specific people that need a little bit more of my time. Have you tried to set some boundaries like that with some clients, or has anybody crossed the line, I guess?
One, but
Yeah.
that was handled.
Yeah.
Um,
Or have you fired clients because of that? I have.
uh, no, it was discussed as adults, was able to like resolve it, but um, see, this is where like I think we did. I don't mind. I mean, I think
Yeah.
this is like a you you're the way you do that is totally valid. Like I
And I'm
would
also
100%
not
support.
like I'm also like because I'm signing people up for holistic coaching, it's like they're probably gonna they can bring in like relationship drama, family drama, whatever into like a text. And it's just not good for my mental health to like and again, it's like a lot of stuff they need to be able to think it through in that moment unless it's something super serious, which again I will be available for. But like just having that kind of boundary with people has been a huge thing.
Yeah, and I think that's totally like that. I'm so
Yeah.
for that. I made the personal decision to want to, but not want. That's the wrong word. To accept that, but I also don't. I don't know about this. My response to people sometimes is like so robotic at times if it needs to be robotic, so they realize, hey, I need to chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna feed into it, but like with like on the form stuff, I like to catch it in the moment so I don't have to fix the problem. Because if we look at like behavior change, like data and stuff, it's like if you try and get them to change something like way after the fact,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not the process. Like if I can catch it then I'm cool. But if it's like little bitty, whatever, like I don't mind. Like, hey, like appear, answer a question if it's like about the job that we're doing. I don't really get people that'll go so on about anything that's not training related. I think that's just the
Yeah.
way that I just respond. I think it's in a care like it's a very caring sense, but I don't think that like I grab I, I don't get that through text. I'll get that through person, like in person on a
Yeah.
phone call. That's cool. But like I've never had it to where they like go past like what we're trying to talk about to where I'd be like, hey, I need to shut off like response time to you to only a week. Like it's always about the
Yeah.
task or like, hey, I'm trying to like figure this food out or whatever, whatnot. And it's always like I said, it's to what they're trying to do. It's never like blends over because I just don't entertain it. Like I'm just not
Yeah.
going.
No, yeah, I don't and like it's not that I shut off the response time, it's just I don't entertain it. It'll just be like I respond to something that needs a response to, right?
Yeah.
Just because some people like and I guess now with online coaching, also because I'm training people that are just like higher performers, I don't get a lot of that. But in the past I used to a lot. So it was just like, especially doing group fitness, I'm getting like a ton of questions or on Instagram, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge thing for just like my own mental health behind the business. How's your wife doing in it? Does she like it? And congratulations on that, also, by the
Oh,
way.
thank you. It's like typical first year, like because
Yeah.
a lot of she's just learning. She went from being like an expert at like special education, like with special needs kids, like as like not my wife is so great type thing, like really was like I would
Yeah.
probably say best in the state, like
Wow.
lectured at
Yeah.
Vanderbilt. Yeah. But to where there's just like it was not good. Like her mental health took a hit and like her
Yeah.
family was never for it. And I just came in, I was like, this just cannot be. Like you just we're gonna try
Yeah.
and have kids, you can't do like it's just not good. It's you're not getting respected for how good you are. Like she's just stuck in the like teacher role as she tried to like climb up.
For
Is
sure. Yeah.
well, this was crazy. But so otherwise, back to the original question. she's liking it. It's just a transition. Like her clients are doing good. She's just getting the like early, when you're a new trainer, like you pretty much
Yeah,
take on who you can take on. So
yeah,
there's some of that, but overall
yeah.
pretty good. Just
That's good.
once she
Yeah.
becomes more confident in what she knows, as opposed to like, hey, like this guy's doing this, like what, or this lady's doing this, like how do we fix it? Like, oh, it's this type thing.
Yeah. I have two things that I want to talk about really quick. So, with just on the topic of business, and social media. So, I know that like you kind of started making videos, or I guess everyone started to do the more short form content and stuff whenever it started to pop off a couple years ago. And you've been kind of like progressively changing the way that you do it right now. You got a mic on. You do like your own personality into it, whatever. Like, how has it progressed? And is it something that you always thought, or I guess, did you know that you were going to start doing that kind of stuff? Were you against it? How's your confidence? Has it gotten better? And yeah, what kind of content do you think that you're going to start making?
I mean, I always wanted to be a YouTuber, the
Oh, really?
dreamers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we grew up in the time where YouTube
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
coolest thing ever.
Literally. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, if they were like,
Who
hey,
was
you
like
can be
the
YouTube,
name, like the what's like a YouTuber way back in the day that you used to watch?
like fitness or just overall?
Just overall. Like, what's the
Oh,
oldest YouTuber you can think about?
I mean, there's PewDiePie, there's one, but I found him late. Who was it? Uber Hexanova, this gaming, like I told you, nerd.
Oh,
Like
okay. Yeah.
his
Yeah.
stuff is hilarious. But like OG would be like the Hodge twins or like
Yeah. It's so yeah.
Omar
Yeah.
Esau, like all like those dudes, like that was the stuff.
Yeah, people probably don't know those names. I mean,
Freaking
now
dude.
they're doing so much political stuff on their podcast and stuff. So
Yeah, I don't even bother with that now.
it's funny, like the Hodge twins. So I knocked doors in Virginia, selling pest control for a few years. So I'd like move out there every summer and knock
Oh,
doors.
why?
Wait, what's up?
I didn't know that till I saw you post about it. I was like, I would never have guessed.
Yeah, it's just so random. It's 100% like the reason why I feel like I like to make content now and like can kind of I've been able to translate sales into everything that I do just because I freaking sold bug spray. But it's
Right.
super random. But I worked for this company, it's like a pest control company. And so we'd go in for a meeting every day before we go knock doors. So every summer I'd like go out there for 100 days. And the Hodge twins actually, their office or like their warehouse was above us, so they were like there every day. It was just like so weird.
Oh,
So
that's
like
cool.
when I was knocking doors, and at the time it was like they're like OG fitness, YouTubers, influencers, and so I would watch them like load up. Like they had like an assistant. They'd be like loading up T-shirts into like the truck every day. So it was kind of one of those first things that I was like, oh, like there's like they're doing something right and like paying attention to it, which is so like just and they like worked out at my gym, just so random that they like lived in Manassas, Virginia, just like right outside DC. But yeah, it was like I was in a meeting one day and it was like, holy shit, is that a Hodgson that just walked by? And it was just like mind blowing. But yeah, that's old school. Most people wouldn't know that. And then so whenever you started to make content till to now, how's it progressed? What do you think that you like about, I guess, how it's progressed? What do you want to get better at? What plans do you have? You want to do YouTube like style videos, like longer form?
No, I have no interest in
No.
that. Funny enough. Now that I was like,
Yeah.
I would never, I know I will never make the time for it. Um, no, it was like I started making videos at Quantum like consistently, like with Mario and all that.
Yeah.
That was so fun because it was just like just hit record.
Yeah.
Here's the
It
topic of
looks
like,
amazing. He's making it look amazing. Shout out
yeah,
Mario because this entire setup is uh either he gave it to me or he told me to buy it.
yeah, like so like I would just see like that would be dumb shit downstairs at
Yeah.
Quantum. Like, but like that probably there was dumb shit going on for sure. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is just like funny. And then you got like I would just be a smart ass to the
Yeah.
members, and they just went back with it, and that was fun. So like I like that comedy, not comedy, that content, like just like funny, because like I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel with fitness content. I'm well aware of that. So I'm just gonna go out there and just do like just a fun thing. Like if it takes
Yeah.
off, it takes off. I actually enjoy making content like that. I think it's fun. So like if it gets engagement, great, obviously. But if not, I like doing it. So like that I don't mind. Like the short term stuff or like whatnot is cool.
Yeah, and then like now you got the mic. Are you gonna eventually start filming with like a like a not a real camera, like a bigger camera, or like I guess yeah. Well, how do you feel about the online stuff? Like, is it something that you want to grow and scale, or are you gonna keep
Yeah.
it just something a little bit more?
No, I
Yeah,
like I want to learn the camera stuff for sure. Like I'm already like playing around more with like just the iPhone camera with like
Because even
the
like if you're nerdy about one thing, you're gonna be nerdy about a lot.
yeah,
Like if you're nerdy about this kind of stuff, it's easy to get pulled into all the little gadgets and stuff, things you can do.
because I like the editing. So like I'm playing with like better edits for this year. Like that was on my like yearly goal thing was to get better at like content in general, just like
What do
more
you use
quality.
to edit on your phone?
Right now it's CapCut because it's freaking easy.
If you're a trainer listening, or if you're anybody listening, and you make content, you need to download CapCut and do
It's
just like
so
the
good.
It's like so good. There's like I could easily edit something on CapCut that's gonna take me like 30 minutes on my computer, and I have software. It's just like so easy sometimes that I'm like I'm not. The
Right.
quality is not that big of a difference for me to like want to put it on my computer, and
Yeah.
it's significantly cheaper.
It's
It's
so
free if
fun.
you want it to be. Yeah,
Yeah, it's fun. So like I like that. But yeah, online definitely. I definitely want to grow online for sure. Like I want to grow both.
yeah,
Like so we
yeah,
have the goal is to double the business we did last year this year.
yeah. And
And I'm
so
like,
are like what can you manage online? Like what do you shoot for when it comes to how many clients you take on at a time, or do you do like just sign them up for X amount of time, or
it just the goal is to get to like 37 or something this year. I'm at about I hover around 30
okay,
and they
with
usually
just
stay
online with online clients or both?
oh just online. In
Yeah,
person, I'm at like close to 27 sessions a week.
damn, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so we're trying to get that to like 35 is the cutoff for in person. Any more than that, I feel like your quality drops. You just it's just too much.
For sure, yeah. Do you have any, I guess, questions for me when it comes to this topic specifically? Just so, I mean, like anything that I can help with or that you're curious about when it comes to how I run it. Um, or I
Yeah,
guess like my
like you
plans,
have like
just so also like just it's specifically like for trainers listening. I want to give a couple of nuggets on this kind of stuff because I feel like I'm just stepping more into that mentor type of role for other
yeah, because
trainers.
I've noticed your content is consistently engaged with. That might be because you've like figured out that niche or whatever, but it's like you'll even have lapses like in your like reels, and it's like they still hit the same like amount of engagement like consistently.
What do you mean? Um,
Like it'll be like if I posted like once or the same frequency as you, I get way less engagement on posts as you do like relative to like following percentage or whatever. Like yours is like always like consistently like relatively high.
so um I was at Alpha Land from like August till May this past year. Um, and when I went there, I was like really so it was like a bunch of like basically like you've obviously seen it, you know what it is, but if anybody's listening and they don't, it's like the new mecca of fitness, but in reality it's like content mecca. It's not necessarily just fitness. And so there's a lot of content creators and a lot of people who have really big followings and a lot of people who have really big followings for very random, stupid things, in my personal opinion. No offense to
Yeah.
anybody, but like they're just like, doing it like they're doing their thing, but it's not necessarily trying to help people. It's like, and nothing against them. They might be making people laugh or like just entertaining people, whatever. But a lot of people that are getting a lot more engagement than me for other things, right? And so that really hit my ego. I was like, what the fuck? Like this kid that just graduated high school, didn't go to school, like just popped off on TikTok and they have all these brand deals and all these things or whatever. And it was like, okay, well, no matter how much smarter, how much more I feel like I'm doing, right? Like at the time I was kind of a little arrogant about it. I can still learn something from people who are just making it pop off online, right? And so I started to just really like get really curious about it because a lot of the demographic there are kids that are like 18, 19, 20, early 20s that are just like they literally like didn't go to school and that's like their university of like content creation. So everyone that I talked to had grown from like 10K to like 100K overnight pretty much or even getting up to 10K or whatever. And everyone was like you have to post every single day. And I was like so like I was kind of in that mindset too of like I don't want to like blow people up. I want to be like everybody else. But everybody said that. And I was like, okay, like at some point I have to acknowledge that I've never tried to post every single
Yeah.
day and tried to like be consistent about it. So I was like, I'm gonna, try my best. If I don't get every day, it is what it is. But like I'm gonna shoot for every day and see what happens. And I started to do that. But I think the biggest reason why the engagement stays with the amount of times that I post is because everything is different. Like either I'm doing a different type of video, like there might be a little vlog where it's just music and me working out, or there might be an information video or whatever. But the background or whatever I'm posting isn't like the same background every single time, right?
Ah,
Because I think in general the algorithm is
doesn't.
going to not, it's not going to like that. And if you've built like your following off of that and that's like you do the same consistent background, it probably will. But like when it comes to your followers too, if they see a video with you in the gym right now, for example, and it's that background, and then you post another one tomorrow, they're gonna immediately assume that they already saw it. Because at least
That's
that's kind of how my thought process goes. Like they're gonna
okay.
assume that they already saw it because it's the same background. So at least like I try to give them like a gap of like I don't post the same background of the same thing, or like I'm giving variety to it. And then I think another thing is consistently engaging with other people's stuff. So I tried to like drop comments or like likes, comments specifically, or share other people's stuff and really like build a community because I am working from home, like in my studio. Like I'm not really interacting with a lot of people in person during a day. So online I'm consistently, like dropping comments or whatever on other people's pages. And so then they end up doing the same thing for me. But it's also like showing Instagram, the algorithm, whatever, that it's like, hey, there's a connection between me and this person, right? So it's
Cool.
like kind of bringing me up on their stuff and just staying active in DMs too, just responding to people and utilizing the app. Like both TikTok and Instagram kind of like they kind of favor you, I would say, if you use the app for your own consumption, right? Like they want to get you stuck on it. So just trying to use it, scroll reels and stuff. But I think that's what it is. And I think also just the crispiness of the content for sure. I try to make it as clean as possible. So I think that that's another thing that for sure gets the engagement. But I don't feel like I get a ton for like the following that I have. But I will say that I do get a lot of random like my reels do get a lot of like push from the algorithm to like random people, right? So I do get a lot of random people following me because of the content that I post. A lot of clients have come from videos, and like I had a client in Sweden that just got done after 6 months of coaching with me, and she found me on a reel. So I was like, how is she gonna have a connection to me? Literally, like it just because it pushed it. So that's what I would say. And then like audio is a huge thing too for me. Like a lot of people have like the Bluetooth mics, but they don't know how to talk into them. So it'll be like really like loud and like, just and I just don't want to listen to that. Like if I'm scrolling, I'm like, I don't know if I
Mhm.
can listen to that. And so like I'll do like a instrumental or something in the background so that it kind of like works if there is a little bit of that kind of like noise just like in the mic, then I'll put a song into it. That way you can't really tell. So it's just like finding those little things for sure. And for the most part, it's just like making content that I like as much as I do consume, I'm consuming content on, for example, how to create videos or like more like the tech stuff. Not necessarily consuming fitness content videos. That's another thing is like I try not to look too much at the fitness industry because then when it comes to me sitting down and trying to think of an idea, it's like actually like I'm only thinking about all the trends that are out there. I'm only thinking about what somebody else said, and it's like not my um idea, I guess. I end up making what everybody else does if I do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
I would
then
agree.
the last thing that I want to talk about, and I know we're kind of a little over, but you have time? Like 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay, cool. Fascia. Let's talk about fascia. Well, I wanted to point something out. Actually, you said this earlier, and I really wanted to bring attention to it because I just think that as I grow older in general as a person, I personally like absolutely love when somebody like speaks up for what they believe in and they just like tell me like their reasoning for why they believe in something, right? Because most of the time that's all I want. If somebody's confident enough to like have a discussion with me, I'm like, okay, cool, like I want to listen now, right? But most people are scared to speak up about whatever their philosophy is or whatever. And something that, and I've been trying to do that with my clients a lot because that's where a lot of change happens. I need to call them out. I need to just be like straight up with them and like give them that why of like why I'm calling them out. But I used to be a lot more arrogant. I'm still a little arrogant, I would say, about like fascia and like people's pain and everything and the ways that I go about it. But in the past, I was kind of a little cocky ass, but also a little um I would get really like defensive if anybody questioned me even a little bit. And so something that you said earlier in this call, but then like back in the day, I don't remember when, you said I don't like we were talking about it and we were kind of like getting into it, like going back and forth because I think I was just being arrogant and defensive and thought that you were against like my viewpoint on something. And you said, what did you say? You said I don't want to instill fear in my clients.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's something that like
I like that.
really
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you said that earlier in the call. You said like you said something about like the PT place that you're at and just
Oh,
how
that,
that was
yeah.
kind of a thing, right? And so that comment, like that you saying that to me, like really like is one of those things that like somebody says something to you and you're like, damn, you're right, right? Because at the time I had been injured for so long and I was so like pulled into everything that was helping me heal that I had this like slight I thought I didn't, but I had this slight perspective of like everybody's feeling the way that I'm feeling. But there was also this like fear in me when it came to my training because I had been in pain and I didn't want it to come back. And so even though I was like very aware of like, oh, I don't feel like I'm instilling fear intentionally into people, I feel like it was a very like subtle, like there is fear because I have fear, right? And so you making that comment really was like, oh shit. And it really started to shift the way that I talk to my clients because in the past I would like give them a bunch of information.
Still laughing about the Tanya Lopez. That's hilarious.
Tanya,
Tanny.
Tanny, like dude, it's always like Tanny,
Go
Tanya,
off.
Tania. Hold on a second. Let me just fix the camera. All right. It's like the more technology you use, it's supposed to make everything easier, but it actually makes things harder sometimes. Okay, cool. Still recording. Awesome. So I was saying that you said that to me and it really like made me start to I started to notice that the way that I was talking to my clients was like, don't do this because you're gonna get hurt, right? And as much as I was like trying to avoid that, I was like putting this subconscious fear or this idea in their head, and that's what they were focusing on. And then it would unintentionally happen, right? So I just wanted to like tell you that because I think it's like one of those things that like you don't really realize how impactful your words can be for anybody. And just like sometimes we just kind of say the perfect thing for someone at that time that it just kind of clicks, even though like I don't feel like we were like in an argument. It was just more of like, just
No.
talking about our opinions, right?
Yeah.
So and I think online, it's just the way that people talk about things in the past. Like there's some people who talk about like, for example, like when I started to get into fascia, I got into it because of this structural therapist in Nashville, and he was like just so deep where like you couldn't really have a conversation. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, hey, like thanks for like kind of giving me some resources, but he was just like way too deep into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like is that something that you because I know you asked me something about it more recently or something over a DM, I think. But yeah, do you consider it when it comes to training or when it comes to mobility specifically, maybe not just fascia, but like mobility, how do you address mobility things with people for the most part?
So with I'm actually big on mobility. Funny enough, like
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
yeah, big time. I don't one because I'm not super versed in the whole fascia thing directly. Like the stuff I know on fascia is like what the research has to say is as far as I've deep dove into it on just
Yeah.
like the lack of from the studies that we'd be able to like actually like physically alter fascia from like a physical standpoint because we would just like like if we did that we would just like crumble underneath a bar on our back. So like in my brain I'm like that doesn't like equate. But then it's like if we look at stuff like foam rolling as an example, we don't know how the fuck that works. But it
Yeah.
does, and I use it all the time. Like the way I'll explain it is all the time. Like I'll use foam rolling, I'll use a crossbar with Theraguns. Like all I know is like there's some like mechotransductor that like works like with vibrations, like goes faster in pain, whatever. Like don't care, it gets person where I need it to be. Um, so like with mobility, like we know a lot of it's like CNS driven. So that can,
Yeah.
but like with that statement alone, could be who knows what. Like there's who knows. Like so all we know is that it's providing a signal to cause tightness. And like I was saying earlier, like with the prescript model, like they have a way of addressing it. But like sometimes that stuff doesn't work. And it's like the stuff I like, do you know PRI?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think
like the
so. Yeah. Yeah.
PRI,
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's what I've been learning how to use downtown, and like that works sometimes where it's like
Hmm.
it's so just like where the diaphragm's sitting, like where that's at, like that has profound impacts. And if you would ask me a year and a half ago, I'd been like, that's bullshit. Like the breathing drills to fix on that, that's fucking stupid. But now I'm like,
Yeah.
I literally just did it. I just did it 2 hours ago with a guy, and he's like, I don't feel any pain. I'm like, right on. So I was like,
What made you get into that? Or like what was like the reason why you that clicked for you? The
yeah.
breathe this breathing stuff, diaphragm stuff.
Well, it goes back to Pat. So Pat had talked about it like with like Bill Hartman, and like I've tried to learn. I tried to learn that on my own, and like I could not understand the PRI book. I was just like, whatever. But the dude that I'm working with downtown, he's big guy, really smart. We're friends. I was like, dude, I want to mentor under you. Like you started saying, so like we did that. Because it was something I didn't understand, but I have used, and I didn't like using it and not understanding how I was doing it.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm doing this, but like I'm cheating essentially.
Yeah.
So like to go back to the fascia thing, I bet you there is probably something to that because on whatever level, because there probably is, like we'll probably find out in like 20 years, like the trauma stuff, like that is definitely a thing. Whether like the mechanism to which that works, you may think one thing, I may think another, but
Yeah.
who like I've
I mean,
never
I
dove
I
into
also
it.
don't know shit. Like it's like I think I know, but I'm just very open to not knowing anything, to be honest.
Like I haven't dove into it as in any length of depth that you
Yeah.
have. So like I wouldn't even be able to like hold a conversation. Like
Yeah.
you
So
literally just
then,
slap me around the table on fast track, be like, bro,
yeah.
I don't know, but bench press is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So then how do you address mobility? I guess is the question. I mean, that's really what actually asking. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be fascia. Like how do you look at it? And I know most people don't. The thing is at the end of the day, the answers are always the same answers, but like the way we look at them are just different. For the most part, right? Like so with mobility, I guess what has worked or what have you tried other than the breathing or with the breathing, was there like a release or how you adjusted those things? How did that work?
I'll just go through like how like I see it. So like that movement screen. So I have two assessment tools that I can use at any time. I have like the hands-on where I'm like manipulating like the body. Then I have the like passive one where I have them get into like a shoulder flexion raise with like supination to like 120 and see like where they compensate with that because there's usually something. And then shotgun approach it with that. I'll do like a Thomas test. I'll do a hip 90-90 flow. So I think that's a great
Mm-hmm.
it just depends on who's in front of me. And if it's online, obviously I can't do a hands-on test with somebody. So that one works really good. And then if it's like, I don't like to put my hands on people a ton in person. This is
Yeah.
tricky. So, but sometimes it's needed.
Yeah.
Um, so looking at that, and then also with the PRI model, you can kind of see like with like ISAs, like infrasternal angles, like you can tell, like you can tell where someone's going to bias to. So then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I need to use like a narrow strategy for someone that doesn't need a wide, blah, blah, blah. So like I'll figure out based on like their structure, like what they need. Like the guy today, I noticed like we were getting some weird thing on a hamstring curl. Like he would like single leg, he would curl and then he would get a zing like up near lower lat while he was curling the left leg. And I'm like, that's freaking weird. But if you look at his feet, he's rotated out. So he's living an external rotation. So it's like when we drive, so something's probably tight pulling him out that way. So whenever we go to like internally rotate, like on the hamstring curl, like that, pressing on something and zinging. So I had him just stand, recreate it, like go in internal rotation. I was like, oh, that's it. Like the diaphragm's pulling wherever, rib cage is having to move around. I don't exactly know what, but I know that I can take him over to the floor, breathe, expand on that spot, and then we're good. Where if it's like that's a in that scenario, it's like that's how I use like the PRI model. Like the prescript
Mhm.
model what had nothing for that. It has literally zero answers for that.
Yeah.
I'm like, but on the other one, like if I see someone's like lacking shoulder flexion or something, it's like, okay, if we're gonna try an overhead press or lat pull down, chin up, whatever it is, like I'll feed them a static stretch, which I used to think was useless. Now I'm like has place to where we get temporary range of motion, and then I'll load them in
Mm-hmm.
that position because now that's giving a signal back to the CNS that like, hey, we need to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So now we do it. So we start to create adaptation because like whatever signal's causing whatever it's from, who knows? Like them to be tight, whatever in some spot, we have to then provide them a bigger signal to overwrite that because if not, I could have them do that static stretch or whatever. That's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
in a pool.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to drain it, it has to be like bigger. So like when I tell people, hey, we're gonna address mobility, like it's going to have to be more than the 2 sets that you do in the gym. Like, if not, that signal is just like yelling into a cave. No one's going to hear you
Yeah,
if they're
for
at the
sure.
end of the cave. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then training different ranges or full range in general from there. Like that's kind of that's basically
Yeah.
how I, and it's like, yeah, I think about fashion.
Yeah.
I think the fashion just makes sense to me because like
And then you
I
said
had
it.
so many issues in my body that like to me it just it's how I learned it, right? It's by me poking something and being like, oh shit, I feel it over here, right? And then reading what is it called? The Myofascial Meridians book and just kind of understanding the patterns and then like looking at different athletes or whatever and just a lot of things like you're saying, like, okay, like we're moving in the hamstring and then we're getting a zing over here. That was like a huge thing in my own body. Like a lot of where tension was, the or where the pain was not where the actual issue was. And so I think that's what really pulled me into that. But that's usually like the same kind of structure that I bring. I put everybody through. It's like foam rolling, rolling out, kind of just giving some stimulation. And sometimes I'm just like, it's just the touch and the skin, right? Like just like any bodybuilder, you're
Yeah.
just like tapping, whatever muscle they're working. And so it's really just waking something up, giving them a signal. And then I go static stretch and then dynamic stretching or loading it. And understanding how they're supposed to load it, right? And how to like connect from the ground up. Because a lot of times, like people who have shoulder issues, they're not grounding or they're not like, utilizing their core the way that they're supposed to, or their pelvis is off or whatever.
Right.
And then again, just like making sure that they understand what needs to happen then when it comes into actually working out. So whether that's how they're loading it, making sure that things are stacked, making sure that you're training full range, that there's enough tension throughout the entire range, or they're training different variations, right? Like most people are having those like fascia, like the big thing that is a common denominator for everybody is it gets stuck, right? So if people are holding certain postures in their daily life, right? Whether it's sitting on a computer or just in general, I kind of know like everyone drives with the right foot, like hits the gas pedal with the right foot, or they're most people are right-handed holding their phone here, so they're bringing up their elbow and like just I think a lot of that kind of stuff is much more of like where it's stuck for the average person, and then we can kind of get into like the trauma stuff or whatever, but it's really just like um what is the physically what's the pattern that I'm working against, whether it's in their life or sometimes in bodybuilding. It just creates certain patterns based off of how you're lifting, right? There's no rotation, there's no unilateral exercises a lot of times for most bro splits, right? Or you're not really like just moving into different planes, so it's just it's the same thing, you know.
Yeah. You said it. Like, we still train. Like, the
Yeah, yeah,
training ends up fixing it.
yeah, and it can also work against it, right? So it's like that's where
Oh,
the training comes in. um Last thing, because I think this is like a huge topic, is rotation, because that's like I think the number one thing that most bodybuilding programs are missing, in my opinion.
what's
Have
that?
you always included it in your training, or is it something that you've done over the years to help posing, for example? Do you notice a difference in your posing, in your core, compared to other guys or other clients that are competing because you do train competitors? So like,
Yeah.
yeah, is that something that they train as well, and does it impact posing specifically?
Yeah. 100%. And like, its return on investment is so easy for as little time as it takes. Like, I've done Pat is the reason I got into that, because I was like, breaks down like all the planes like of training or whatever that we use, not planes, like motor patterns we use for like throwing rotation. And it's like that one's like clearly missing, and it's like you literally do that, like you said, like in your
Yeah,
routine, that you have to rotate. So like all you do, and like to get like people are, I don't even tell them we're doing that. It's just like, hey, we're gonna throw a fucking light
yeah,
ball
yeah, yeah, yeah,
fast as shit, and then there you go, you got it, and you're good.
yeah,
And it's just like people like that, and like it takes no time away, and you're warmed up. Like,
yeah. And it's
I
just
think you're
it
not
feels
doing
so
it.
good.
It feels great. It
Yeah.
feels great.
It's crazy because I know a lot of really smart coaches and I have a few that I have actually scheduled to do podcasts with, and I like know for a fact that they're smart as fuck, but they don't like I'll see them training clients and they like never ever make them rotate, or I've seen their programming and I'm like, dude, like that's like the number one thing that you could really like, it's like the low-hanging fruit in my opinion. Especially
But
when it comes to pain and just like getting people to be able to connect to both sides of their body evenly. But I know we've been on forever, so I appreciate you for
yeah,
taking some
thank you for
time to
having me
talk
on.
to me today. Just a little, just catch up. Next time we can get into like deeper topics now that people like know you. But I'm gonna start doing podcasts like this as my I want to say my main form, but one of my main forms of making content because this is like the easiest thing ever. So if you haven't, like, I know you guys did a couple like kind of like
I have
sitting
some
in the living room and
backlog.
stuff.
I have some backlog for the year.
Yeah. Um, it's really easy to just have a conversation with somebody else. So I'd highly recommend it because it just kind of like checks all the boxes and you're able to like network and like I think a lot of the times people get a lot they just get to hear your perspective on stuff and they like,
Right.
can tell that you're a good coach. So plug your stuff really quick before we get off the call, just like your coaching, how people can apply, what you would say you can help people with if somebody's looking to compete. We didn't get super into competing stuff, but you are a competition coach, which
Yes.
still right. You're still doing that?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like my
Okay,
life.
cool.
Yeah, it's Big Shane Coaching at on Instagram and then bigshanecoaching.com. And then just reach out either like via DMs or there's a link to apply for coaching. If you're really just looking to take like training like seriously and like get past like being stuck where you're at, like hit me up. We'll at least have a conversation. If I'm not the person for you, like I can find someone that is for you. So like at the end of the day, you'll leave that call like with something. It's not just gonna be like I just talked to a guy for 20 minutes and waste my
Yeah.
time. So yeah, just reach out. And Tanya, thank you for having me on. This was fun. Look
Yeah,
forward to
dude.
doing it.